Today we have Dr. Christiane Northrup, and we're going to have two conversations. As you know, let me just go ahead and hit the record button because I've got notepads. I've got Robert's not here, and he's always reminding me.
Right.
So here we go. Okay.
Good. All right.
So for those of you who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, as you know, we are being garbled, and it is up to you to help me grow the classroom. Tag, text, email this link to everybody you know, because we're going to have Dr. Northrup and I are having two conversations today. One's going to be on Facebook and YouTube live, and then we're going to stop, and then we're going to have another conversation. So you've been warned. I know that people join us little by little, but tell everybody. Oh gosh, Robert always put a Q on there. So if you have any questions, I'll remind you. I already hit the record button, so I'm good there. So the next thing I'm going to do is we are going to dance. Let me see. Hold on a second. Before we dance, I've got to do one more thing. I got Robert in my ear almost telling me, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. So the last time Dr. Christiane Northrup was on, she absolutely dazzled me with her grace in dancing. So all of you, fasten your seatbelts because we are going to learn and grow together. And it is time to dance. Here we go.
The
Can you hear that?
Mcdermott Show.
Okay, here we go.
Bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, count on me, I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian Mcdermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian Mcdermott.
Okay, everybody, it's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, I'm really, really excited, as I always am excited that we have such wonderful teachers that come into the classroom. But today, I've been looking forward to this moment because Dr. Christiane Northrup has gone from the traditional think inside the box, regular allopathic OBGYN, has helped so many women get through so many things in life, to all the way to thinking outside the box, to the point where I'm going to tell Dr. Christiane, or I'm going to tell you all, that Dr. Northrup is going to have a behind the scenes conversation with me of things that we know we can't say in this platform, but we can say in others. So after we finish the class today, we are going to continue our conversation, and that conversation will only be on BitChute. So if you're listening on podcasts or watching on Facebook or watching on BitChute later on, just know that there will be a part 2. This was something that she agreed to right before we went on the air. And I am thrilled because many of you are very fearful right now about the shot that's been being forced upon us and bullied upon us. So we're going to be talking about some of the side effects and some of the things, and perhaps maybe figure out how we can get out of the fear mode and into the action mode. But today on Facebook and YouTube, we're going to be talking to Dr. Northrup about her 4th edition of this book. And we're also giving one away. So it's called The Wisdom of Menopause, 4th edition. that means that this woman is always thinking outside the box, because once you write something, it's done. But then if you rewrite it and you look at the new and the different things that you've learned since, then you can say, you know what, I'm still growing too. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that world-renowned best-selling author Dr. Christiane Northrup is here to do just that. Welcome back to the classroom, Dr. Northrup.
Fun to be here. Always love to be in a classroom. My office is in a 100-year-old schoolhouse, and I kept the blackboards and everything.
I love it. I love it. I was telling you off the air that I feel like I am speaking to somebody that has angelic rays going right through you. The sun is shining right through. And I'm hoping that we will have that kind of conversation, especially about menopause. There are so many women, Dr. Northrup, that don't even understand the concept of menopause and why we are going through this. But you explained very well how if we're not prepared for it, spirit, mind, and body, how much harder it's going to be for us. So share a little bit about your background, Dr. Northrup, and share why you feel that this is the time to write this 4th edition.
I am a board certified OBGYN, and my whole career has been based on listening to women tell their stories, because I was not seeing that approach in my training, that someone's story would actually be written in their bodies, in their biology. My colleague, Dr. Bruce Lipton, has a book called The Biology of Belief. So I wrote this book before Bruce came out with his stuff, but I was just in the 80s, especially listening to women. And I knew that all diseases are what's called biosymbolic. So the things that hit our breast, the things that hit our thyroid, the things that hit our uterus, they all are symbolic of a deeper spiritual meaning. And if you can step out of victimhood, because here's what we women have been taught. Oh, it's my hormones. I would be fine. But these raging hormones, as though hormones aren't related to every thought you think. So I really had a woman come in and she said, I just want to know, is it me or is it my hormones? As though your hormones are in Florida and you are in Iowa. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And so once you understand that these biologic processes are actually working in service to your soul, then you got the keys to the ignition of your life. But if you believe, oh, I was going along and I'm fine and I'm not myself anymore and it's just my raging hormones. Now, that said, there are things that you can do with your hormones, but please remember, this is like in psychiatry, what have the mainstream medicine done to women? Way back in the 60s, it was Valium. Actually, before that, it was phenobarbital, which is how Judy Garland died. So it was the tranquilizers, and it was, Seconal, all this suppress. And then the word hysterectomy comes from the word for hysteria. And then there's the way back, I think at the turn of the 20th century, they would remove women's ovaries to get them to calm down. So we women and the feminine has been suppressed for centuries on planet Earth. So we've made some progress, especially, in 1920, women got the right to vote. 1920. So we're just at the century mark, the centennial of women's suffrage. And then the 70s was the second wave of the women's movement. So, right after the Emancipation Proclamation, the women, even the middle class, upper class women, realized that the freed slaves had more rights than they did. And that's when the women's suffrage movement began. And so here we are now, where in the baby boom generation was having their first abortion at the age that their mothers had their first children. So then we've delayed childbearing. So now actually the fertility window is, it's two things. It's a paradox. The fertility window is bigger than it's ever been with moms after the age of 35.
Mhm.
A lot and a lot of women are having children then. And what that does by a process called priming, it actually keeps you younger. Like if you go to kindergarten and you're the oldest mother there, you're around young people all the time. And what happens as a result is you stay younger. And that is because the influence of our communities. Well, right now we have what, 43 million people in perimenopause. And this is by and large the generation that's come after the baby boom generation. So it's no more, there's not a lot of fear anymore. There's some, but not nearly as much as there used to be, where women lied about it. That, you know, now, how many books do we have on perimenopause and menopause? We've got, you know, wonderful work by Maritza Snyder on essential oils. We have all kinds of stuff now. So what women need to know, that this transition is normal and that chances are good that a huge part of your life, maybe more of your life, will be after the menopause than was before. It's adolescence in reverse. So your soul voice is coming up. So what you knew at 11, and it's funny, I just had an 11-year-old girl visiting. Oh my goodness. She came right in and told me the time of day. She wanted to tell me what it was like to go to Olive Garden and how they wouldn't let him take off the mask, and could I believe it? And she was just right there, because that's, our voice hasn't been shut down yet.
Yeah.
We're encouraged to have a voice, but then once you get your period, this sort of shuts down, the ovaries turn on, and then you're shut down so you can fit in and be loved and have a family. And then perimenopause hits and you're going, wait a minute, what about me? So the stuff that you would have put up with when you were 32, 33 will make you angry. So I distinctly remember being in this little room that we called the Bat Cave at the time, writing Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which meant I had to literally create a language of women's health. Everything that I knew from being board certified in OBGYN was women's diseases. And our quote health fairs are not about health. They're about your blood pressure. They're about your cholesterol levels. They're about your mammograms. They're about your pap smears. They're about what vaccines have you had. This is not health. It's disease screening. So I needed to invent what is going on that is healthy, because God doesn't make mistakes.
Doesn't.
Why would you have a woman who left her physical fertility and then be around on the planet for 40, 50 more years? Why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense. Well, we do it for the same reason that the lead elephants, you know, in the herd are always the oldest woman. She's the one who remembers where the water was. She's the one who remembers where the food is. And she leads the whole herd. I think killer whales are the same. They lead the pod. And in the same way, because our brains have been rewired for wisdom, we move into the future as leaders. Now, let me tell you what that does not mean. That does not mean the end of your sexuality and sensuality, because we have studies showing that it is women in their 60s and 70s having the best sex of their lives. So it doesn't mean that your body deteriorates, that your attractiveness goes away. That's why I wrote that book, Goddesses Never Age. So the main thing to know is, I think the biggest thing is, get over the mindset that it's the beginning of the end. Now, if you go into a standard doctor at, say, age 50, they will follow the mean curves. And they'll say, well, now, you know, at your age, now it's time to have, you know, you need your mammograms and you need your this and you need your that. So there's a literally cultural portals, like retirement age of 65. The portals have more meaning biologically than the scientific literature, which is why I tell women, do not give your age. And the reason that I say that is not because there's a problem, but it is because our culture already has you in a cage of age. And every time you tell yourself, I'm too old to, or it's the beginning of the end, or I can't do that anymore. I mean, a lot of women at menopause stop driving at night, stop going places alone. And so what happens is your life cones down, or let's say that you let your husband do everything. And so this is a time of reinvention. So what happens, the first thing is when you start to skip ovulations, and that's a 6 to 13 year process, everybody. That's not, it's an event if you go in and have a hysterectomy and your ovaries out, or if you have chemotherapy. And I talk about that in the
Yes.
book, like ways that you know, if it's like, whoop, suddenly you're in menopause, that's very different than a 13-year process where you just start to skip periods. Maybe you get migraine headaches, all kinds of things, just because you're changing. Remember, the ovaries never stop producing hormones. I learned in my practice,
Ever?
they never, ever, ever stop
Yeah.
producing hormones.
When I was 42, my doctor tried to do a total hysterectomy, but I chose not to go to them. I went to another one who happened to be a different kind. This is before I even started thinking about
Right.
my life the way it is today. I'm
Right.
totally a different person back then, who believed in science, who believed cut it off if it's diseased. So not about changing my lifestyle, but cut it off. And I went to a different doctor because I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
And that she wanted she didn't want to do a laparoscopic procedure. She wanted to cut, and she wanted to go all the way in and take everything out. And something told me, my inner wisdom said, no, that's not right. And I went to this other doctor who said, I'll only take your ovaries if they're sick. I will only take your cervix if it's sick. I will
Yeah.
only do what, and they removed my uterus, which I regret. They removed my uterus because it was so hard, and he left everything else, but took only that, and he did it laparoscopically. And so I was very grateful. What do you say to someone who's been told that they're in this? Because we go to the doctors, we trust the doctors, and Dr. Levy just yesterday said, you've got to hold these doctors. They're acting criminally if they're being presented new information and they're still not acting to your best interest. They should be put in jail, or if something happens to cause you harm, they should be put up for murder. This is what he was saying. So what do you say to someone who's now dealing with fibroids or facing a hysterectomy?
Well, first of all, if you have a benign condition,
It was benign.
yeah, if you like fibroids, I had one. It was this big. It was, remember, fibroids are pushing your creative energy into dead-end jobs or relationships. In my case, it was my marriage. And that sucker got big.
I love how you coordinate. You say fibroids. What was it that you said? Fibroid is unresolved issues and
creativity that hasn't been birthed.
Correct.
Or it is that you have been shoving your creativity into a dead-end job or relationship. And what happens is many, many women, we're trained to do this. We will do whatever it takes to fit into something. And what we do is we'll make ourselves into pretzels to try to fit into something that does not work for us and isn't meant to work for us. So for instance, when I went through my divorce, I knew how to keep this man happy. I knew what to do. I just wouldn't do it any longer, because what happens is this soul voice comes up and says, what about me? And at that time, I didn't know that good men want to please you. The narcissists just are interested in what they want for themselves. And that's about 1 in 5 people. So we need to, that was a big wake up call for me, which is why I later wrote a book called Dodging Energy Vampires, which is about sociopaths, psychopaths, and just basic garden variety narcissists. Those are the people that at midlife, you begin to recognize, but the voice of society says, oh, you're not being kind, or, oh, they were hurt in childhood. That's why they're acting like they are. I was just listening to Dr. Lee Merritt, talk about psychopathy, where people, the cognitive dissonance is, oh, that person would never do that. And no, she said, what you've got to understand is you would never do that
Mhm.
until you understand the lack of empathy of a psychopath.
Mhm.
And they're at the top of most every corporation, most every business. They are so verbally amazing and they're very, very smart, but they have no empathy. So it is your job, because your soul voice is growing at perimenopause, which is why earlier I said all of humanity is in perimenopause. We all have to have our voice, if
Yeah.
indeed, and what Dr. Merritt said is, and she gave the data that you could trace the wealth of the world back to about 150 men who run all the major corporations and have all the money. She said, but there are what, 7 billion of us? So we ought to be able to handle that. But the only way to handle it, and this goes right to the heart of perimenopause, the only way to handle it is to trust yourself and trust what you know and what you feel. And perimenopause is about actually trusting yourself and not giving yourself over to the doctor, the government, your husband, your job, big pharma. No, it's you saying, this is the temple of my soul, and I'm going to take care of it. Now, also, though, the other thing is this. Let's say in your 20s and 30s, you could eat crap and you could not exercise, and, and then you would diet for a week to get into the little black dress.
Mhm.
Well, try to do that after 45. Your body goes, oh no, no. You've been doing that. So you have a little bit of insulin resistance, let's say, blood sugar a little too high. I mean, the number of women with borderline diabetes is so high, and metabolic syndrome, the apple-shaped figure and all that.
Mhm.
That is completely curable. But you have to do a few things that are not comfortable, like intermittent fasting or like exercise. And at first, none of that stuff is comfortable. If you lift heavier weights, you don't want to do it. So do whatever is necessary. And that's where this divine will comes in, this divine will. You literally can get down on your knees and say, God, help me. I don't know what to do here. Or there's so many things that people are telling me to do. And the degree to which we are always seeking another expert to tell us what to do. No. You are the expert. So when I talk, and my whole career has been to fan the flames of that inner wisdom in women and be a bridge, because I got educated in the very best of Western medicine, Dartmouth Medical School, Tufts New England Medical Center in Boston, clinical assistant professor of OBGYN. I mean, I was in the halls of the very, very best. And I can tell you that those doctors do not know what you know about your body. They never will, they never can. So the very best is when you have a partnership, you have knowledge about your body and they have a body of knowledge, and you put the two things together.
Mhm.
Now, about 25% of women in a primary care practice, family doctor, OBGYN, nurse practitioner, 25% of women who go have a personality disorder. They don't want to get better. They want your energy. And by the way, as I'm talking, some of you have friends like this. I know it. I guarantee you. They don't want to solve the problem. They want your energy. And that energy is called narcissistic supply. So
Wow.
they pick fights, or they only show up when they're in crisis. They never, now just let's go down the checklist. When you're in trouble, they're too busy.
Yes.
But when they need to move on a weekend, they'll call you. And this is how you can tell an empath, a healer. You will feel guilty if you tell them that you have something else planned. Now, when Dr. Mario Martinez studied 700 healthy centenarians all over the world, he said their boundaries were amazing. They were all alike, whether they were Chinese, Australian, didn't matter. They all lived in subcultures of wellness. And when you would say, I'd like to interview you tomorrow, how does 11 work? They'd say, No, I'm sorry. That's my tango lesson. I mean, they literally took care of themselves.
They certainly belong. They're very embedded into the world and their environment and feel very much valuable.
That's
And
it. They feel valuable. So that's the other thing that I want you to get out of your head. Oh, okay. Now that I'm 42, now that I'm 45, and maybe I'm single and the men all want someone who's 20 years younger. Not true. It's not true. No,
it's not.
It will stay true.
It's the story in your head.
Law of attraction.
That's
right.
It
will stay true.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do, you've got to flip the script now. So for me, the perimenopause, it finally put together what I had been seeing in my office for years. But, you go to a 32-year-old doctor and you're 45 and you're asking the 32-year-old what's going on with your body. I can guarantee you they do not know.
No.
And they have no empathy for it. They might have empathy, but, you get what's so beautiful about women over the age of 35, over the age of 45, over the age of 50, or my friend, like the number one sort of model is my friend Gladys McGarry. Gladys has written a book called Living Medicine. She just revised it so that it would be revised and ready for her 100th birthday. And
I would love to have her in the classroom.
Yeah, she would be amazing. Yeah. So Gladys was the president of the American Holistic Medical Association when I first joined as a board member.
Wow.
She delivered her own daughter's baby. Her daughter's a family doctor. And, so what they told the regular people is, she just didn't get to the hospital in time. So Gladys has been such a beacon of beautiful, beautiful wisdom. And she has 6 children, most of whom are doctors. Mm-hmm. And she's just, continued to continue. That's the wisdom. So you can't allow yourself to to become bitter, all of that. This is your time to alchemize the anger, to alchemize the relationship with your mother that didn't work for you. All of that stuff. You are going to be healthy in the second half of your life, only to the degree that you are willing to take on your human homework.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. Amen. And by the way, for those of you, we are giving away, Dr. Christiane Northrup is giving away 1 book. For those of you who would like this, we're gonna go till Monday. So if you're listening on podcast or watching later on BitChute or Facebook or whatever, go ahead and text me. Claim your health back wherever you're watching and text me at 407-373-5959. Your name will go into a winner's basket. And on Monday, we'll pick 1 name and we'll reach out to the winner, whoever wins. So the only way you're going to win is if you text me 407-373-5959. I can just sit here and listen to your wisdom. And I know that I too have my own wisdom. And it's when wise women come together to talk about experiences, not people, but experiences.
Yes.
That's when we really shine. And I will claim that is the reason why women don't marry. Most women don't marry when they're widowed or divorced. They don't want to because they have this fellowship with other women. And it fills that place in our love bucket that just overflows. And that's why it's important to get rid of the narcissistic vampires, which I understand that terminology very well. I always say, I joke as a certified life coach, I know who my vampires are when only come to me when they're in crisis.
Yes.
And they want to coach, but then outside of that, I don't hear from them. But you know what? That's okay. That's their place in my life. And I understand. And you are right. We've got to come to a place where we say, sorry, I'm busy that day. Just like the centenarian. Sorry, that's my tango lesson.
Yeah.
So because we have this wisdom and we have been told that, suppress. No, what would people say? We have this self-talk in our head, and here we are growing these fibroids that we are victims of. We have no idea that this alien thing just came into our body, and our thoughts, our spirit, our mind, all our behaviors, the way we eat, the way we stress, the way we sleep even, is causing this. But here's the thing. How do we tap into this wisdom, Dr. Northrup, when we are being taught to fear?
Okay.
Just to be fearful of everything, of
Yeah.
breathing.
And especially now, 2020, 2021, the first thing everyone needs to do, just stop listening to the mainstream news. Just don't do it. In fact, this is interesting. I was listening to Michael Jaco, and he was talking about, and he's a Navy SEAL, and he was talking about being at a hotel and being on the treadmill in the gym. And CNN was in front of him on the TV. So he thought, well, I'll listen while I'm, here. He said within like 5 minutes, he was so depressed. He was so afraid. And I think we need to remember that there is a frequency coming out of the television, lie vision.
Oh,
that is programming.
Boom.
Yeah, that is.
I hope lie vision. I hope people hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So be very selective. Now, I have Amazon Prime. I like movies. I have Netflix, but I never, and I mean never, watch mainstream television. And when I see it, what'll happen, everybody, is your own wisdom, your own connection with your divine source will come in more and more. And then you'll see this thing. I was having dinner. We were sitting at the bar the other night, and they had a TV there, which I'm not used to, and the sound was off. So as a result, I could watch the programming. Mm-hmm. I could see it so clearly. And I thought, why would anyone subject themselves to this? And by the way, 70-80% of everything you see on that is brought to you by the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
And we are, I think, the United States and one other country, maybe it's New Zealand, we're the only 2 countries in the world that allow direct to consumer ads. But think about it. I was watching something a while back, and an ad came on for a drug for small cell lung cancer. And I thought, first of all, there isn't that much of that. And then someone said to me, oh, no, you don't get it. That was programming the fear of that condition into the population so that they would have a greater chance of actually getting it. So it's what's called predictive programming. So and I want everyone to think about all the movies that we have seen about midlife women or older women. It's getting better. It's far better than it was, because we've seen Helen Mirren and a bunch of stuff and all that. Yeah. But it used to be in the 50s and 60s, the women who were on television, who were in actual life, 45, 46, were presented as though they were grandmothers. So there's a whole stage of life, by the way. So we've heard the triple goddess, right? So we have maiden, mother, crone. Well, they missed one. And that's the one we are right now. And that is the queen. It is the queen of herself. So you don't go from maiden, mother, crone. You probably did in 1900, because the average life expectancy of a woman then was 42. And she saw her first grandchild born about the same age that she died. But think about it. Today's 42 is, in a way, just getting started.
Yes.
And so as a population, because we actually we highly influence each other's biology. That's important. So not only did I tell you, turn off the television, and if you occasionally, once every 6 months, I find myself in someone's house where they have that channel on all the time.
Yeah.
So they're programmed lies, programmed lies, programmed lies, you know.
We're
So, and so you need to spend less and less time with those people. So right now, just like in perimenopause, you're finding out who your friends really are. So the relationships go by the wayside when you find out that the person who's been your best friend only calls you when she has a crisis.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so then you begin to realize, okay, that's not going to help me. And then you, as my Chinese acupuncturist says, we just work out of schedule. So you just work them out of schedule. No, I'm sorry. And by the way, let me give you a little tip. If you've got one of those vampires in your life, the way to get them away from you is to have a need. Okay, so this works really well. And so it's called broken wing, broken wing. So when they call and you go, oh, oh, I haven't been feeling well at all. I'm really under the weather. Boom, they'll hang up so fast because they're only calling to get your life energy. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a new perspective of something I've known for a while. I didn't know That's funny. That's funny. I was not expecting that. Okay. So I had mentioned earlier, because I for those of you who are watching, please claim the book. 407-373-5959 on Monday. We're going to do that. Also, I just want to make sure that you go to whenyouneedafriend.com. And when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, please become a subscriber. While you're there, please subscribe to all my social media, because we don't know which platforms you're going to find me next. But right now we're trying to grow BitChute. And so I appreciate all of you who text me and say, I subscribe to BitChute. I subscribe. So I need for you guys to subscribe to BitChute as well, and tell all your friends to do that as well too. And while you're there, please check out all my sponsors, because without them, there would be no classroom. They help the process so that you can watch this for free. And for those of you who have been so supportive and reaching out to my sponsors like Keep Me Safe Organics, all organic beauty products from head to toe, you get percentage off when you go in there and you buy off my website. Telemedicine, First Alternative Care, the pharmacy in Merritt Island, Right Way Health and Wellness. Dr. Jennifer Gramath is coming on tomorrow to talk about the differences between Lyme, or the similarities between Lyme and the lymphatic system. What do they have in, how do they work together? First Alternative Therapies, we have a brain tap, and we have Avasia for pain. There's so many different ways. And Dr. Northrup, you were talking about building muscle. I've got the best. I'm 58 and look at that muscle. I am just so proud of my muscle. B3 bands. You don't work out, you work out half the weight, half the time, and you build much greater muscle. So check it out on my Shop Now bag. You can go there. They're blood flow restriction bands, and they are phenomenal. So check them out, figure out ways that you can support my sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student. And thank you so much for all your enrolled students that have donated to the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month. I am so grateful to all of you, because as we get more parameters and garbled up, the more costs it is to even bring this to you. So I'm just grateful to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And today I am so grateful to Dr. Christiane Northrup, who has been such a phenomenal warrior or champion for women. She's on her 4th edition of The Wisdom of Menopause, and there is a lot of wisdom. When I turned 58 last week, and I hear you say we should not talk about our age, but I was told that I only had a few years in this industry, and it's been over 10 years. And I said, watch me,
Right.
Watch me.
That's
Right.
the deal. 58, by the way, is the second Saturn return. So astrologically, age does mean something in terms of the cycle of life. So 58 is second Saturn return. The first one, age 27, 28, is when you must become an adult. That's why all those rock and rollers killed themselves. There's Janis Joplin, there's a whole slew of them. 28 is usually when you have some crisis and you have to become an adult. You need to be able to survive on your own.
Mm.
58 on is about thriving. It is
Yes.
about finally doing the work of your soul. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage all of you to go to drnorthrup.com and learn more about the work that Dr. Christiane Northrup is doing. So much wisdom in all her books. I love, Dr. Northrup, how you empower us, And so I had mentioned earlier that I had my uterus removed because it was so filled with fibroid tumors. Of course, now that I know from your reading your books that this was just not only suppressed emotions or creativity, which I now freely
Yes.
exercise, but unfortunately, I made that decision to remove my uterus. So is there things that someone who has had a hysterectomy, maybe they've had tumors, or maybe they're being told that they need to have a hysterectomy? What is your advice to them as the wisdom of menopause comes through?
Sometimes the hysterectomy is absolutely the best choice. So I want to be very, very clear on that. There are women who've said, oh, I wish I had done it earlier. And as someone who has done many hysterectomies, so it's not, but in general, too many are done. And there's so much you can do for benign conditions. Fibroids shrink after menopause. I got tired of dressing around mine. It became so big, I looked pregnant all the time. And I knew a really good infertility surgeon who just repaired the pelvis. And I finally said, oh, for heaven's sake, let me just go do it. And, it's never grown back. And then, after going through menopause, everything is fine. So if a woman is having a lot of symptoms, if she's bleeding so much every single month that she cannot keep her iron levels high, then sometimes that's the best thing to do. You can do birth control pills to keep the hormones low. My product, Praeria mirifica from amatalife.com, will sometimes keep things really smooth. It's great for PMS. It's great for perimenopause. It's great for the same kind of stuff as hormone replacement because it just helps to balance the system. But with the hysterectomy, what I don't want is for women to say, oh, I did that and now I'm irreparably damaged.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true because energetically, all of your organs are still there. Even like if you've lost a leg, energetically, it's still there. Mm-hmm. So you want to work with that. And, I've worked with people who had hysterectomies for cancer when they were, 28 years old. And this is interesting. So they had everything removed at 28. Mm-hmm. Then when they reach the age of menopause, their body starts going through hot flashes and it starts going through that whole thing. It's almost as though we are in a morphogenic field where the wisdom is just going to come down at that age, no matter what. It's so fascinating. But there's so much you can do. Bioidentical hormones, the Praeria mirifica, there's essential oils, there's all kinds of things. And you'll be drawn to the right thing. Like some women absolutely want the prescription hormones. That's fine. And then some women go, nope, give me an herb. You can do so much with diet. I would really tell women intermittent fasting if you've got any weight problem, if you have any blood pressure, blood sugar problem, then you want to do intermittent fasting. Jason Fung has done an amazing job with the science of that, the obesity code, but I cover that whole thing in the wisdom of menopause as well. So generally you want a 12-hour fast because it takes 12 hours for your insulin levels to go back to zero. And then the glucagon starts in and you start burning fat. In general, we snack way too much as Americans, and I'm as guilty as anybody.
It's so nice to hear you say that because, so many, and we talked about this yesterday in the classroom, we hold doctors at such a high place that it's not even natural. But doctors die of the same diseases and have obesity and diabetes and heart disease And they're trying to treat us and tell us, it's like the blind leading the blind sometimes. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, because there are doctors that step out of the box and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm suggesting. You've got to do your own research. You were talking about, this foreign thing just entered my body. I had nothing to do with it. But the reality is, we don't want to take ownership of anything. We want to blame everybody.
That's right. Even now, when we know darn well there's some foreign agent that is, attacking people's health, even then, the people with the highest vitamin D levels, the people who are the happiest, the people who are in the higher frequency, nothing happens, because that thing that everyone's scared of has a 99.9% survival rate. So
99.98. It's even more, and it doesn't make sense anymore. And it's like we hear and obey. And there are wonderful doctors just like yourself, and that become your partner in making decisions. It's the ones that say, if you don't, vaccinate your children, you can no longer bring them back. Run with your kids. Run with your kids.
No, run. Do you know that I had doctors in the 90s tell women they wouldn't see them as patients if they would not go on Premarin? That was actually happening. So this approach, this patriarchal, paternalistic approach, is so obsolete. And if anyone starts shaming you, so Dr. Martinez points out that all tribes wound their members in 3 ways. So, that it's like, you need to play the game by my rules, or I am going to shame you for jumping the fence. And the 3 wounds are abandonment, betrayal, and shaming. Those are the 3 primary wounds. So you've got to have some sovereignty rising up in you, where you go to the doctor and you just say, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel right to me. Or, I'd like to see the package insert, please.
Yeah.
And you'll be, and you can feel it. You can feel it. What people think is, oh God, I don't want to be known as a problem patient, because then they will not see me next time.
Yes.
That's giving them the power. What you have to do is give God the power. It's time to give God the power and say, okay, that door closed. I'm waiting for the next one to open. That's how it works. But you have to be, again, like building the muscles. You've got to be willing to sit in a little discomfort while the next door is waiting to open. Sometimes you need to say no. Many times, by the way, if you just draw the line in the sand, you won't have to lose anything. I want to give you an example. I have a nurse friend who threw up after she gave kids in her clinic flu shots. She just said, I read the package insert. I knew that they didn't need them. This wasn't right. And my own moral compass said, I can no longer do this. So she told her supervisor, I'm sorry, I can't do this part of my job. It would be like back in the 80s, we had nurses and doctors who said, I will not participate in abortions. It's completely their moral code to decide that. Okay. I completely appreciate that. The supervisor said, well, you can probably clean out your desk and, you'll be fired. Well, the next day she goes in and it happened to be her annual review. No one said a word. She's still working at the hospital. I met someone else who works in the development department. And when they asked her, you now need this. And she said, no, I'm not getting this. And she wrote out a thing and, no word was said. You don't realize how much power you have. And I know you hear all the stories, about like things that are happening in Canada right now and people getting fined and just for basic
doctors are given 2 years in prison if they don't euthanize a patient with dementia. 2 years in prison if they don't euthanize. If they ask for it, if they ask for it, and if they don't do it, they will be given 2-year in jail, go 2 years to jail. Now, that person is now looking at other opportunities to end it. This is their job. They work with dementia patients, and morally, they cannot do it.
No.
This is where things are going. That's why we're having a private conversation later on, because we're going to be talking about that. And I know you guys have questions. And Dr. Christiane Northrup, what would you? I didn't mean to talk over you. What were you going to say?
I don't know. Let's just take.
Okay. The last time you were in the classroom, you wanted to talk about posture and the importance of posture.
Yes.
But we ran out of time.
Yes.
And I thought, we are going to talk about posture today. And how does that affect, how is that part of menopause?
It affects everything. It's the beginning of the end. You see these women with the dowager's hump, from being just leaning over the sink, leaning over the computer, whatever. You need to fight for your posture. So let's just start with, I want you to see the way the trapezius muscles come down in your back and at the back of your heart, they combine. So what we have to do is chest up. So I want you to literally think that you have a string and it's pulling you up this way. And it's not, like stand up straight, like your mother said. It's really not that. It is as though there's a string on the top of your head, and you want to literally stretch your spine and then present your chest. And then when you do biceps curls, let's say, do it with that squeezing the shoulder blades together, but shoulders down. And then find yourself in life always presenting the chest, because then what you will do is you will not get that hump thing that so many people have. And by the way, I was starting to get that. And I remember lying down on a massage table, lying face down with my head in the cradle. And I literally would have aching here around my neck. So I had to really work at ironing that out. You can do that with shoulder roll downs, where you're literally putting pressure on the back of the neck, C7, which is the part that sticks up. And you put your feet up and then you just iron that down. The other thing is breathing. Your chest and your rib cage will expand dramatically if you breathe through your nose. And you should never run or be on a treadmill or a bicycle and go any faster than you can comfortably breathe through your nose and out through your nose. And that's the work of Dr. John Douillard, who actually has trained people to go up Mount Everest with no oxygen. That's how good their body gets at extracting oxygen from the air. And you do that by breathing through your nose and out through your nose. And then there's also, of course, the amazing Wim Hof breathing. And if you go to Wim Hof on YouTube, he's got an elementary YouTube on how you do the breathing. You will be astounded. I've done it many times where I just stick it on YouTube, go through the 4-minute thing. And over time, that will get rid of asthma. It will decrease your risk of getting the flu or colds, and it will expand your rib cage. And it also engages the parasympathetic rest and restore nervous system, because the vagus nerve goes down through the diaphragm. And when you breathe fully through your nose, the air goes down to the lower lobes of the lungs where all of the blood is. And then you literally will engage that parasympathetic rest and restore, because fear is always fight or flight. Fear is always accompanied by a cascade of stress hormones, cortisol and epinephrine, which will cause you to want to eat sugar, which will cause cellular inflammation, which is the root cause of all chronic degenerative illness. So when you just breathe fully in through your nose, out through your nose, 5 slow, deep breaths, you stop the fear. You literally will stop the entire thing, but you've got to break the trance. So no, tell, lie, vision, mainstream. And then take off your phone, You know, those news services where you just look at your phone and then it's the worst news of the world coming up on your phone. I made, when that started to happen on my phone, I said, what is this? I guess it was Apple News because I have an iPhone. I just disabled it. I don't want to see that. I want to see my screensaver of my backyard with the tulips, and I want to see texts from my friends. That's it. I'm not going to take in the news of the world that's trying to program me. Because remember, if you can keep people afraid and angry, you can sell them anything.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So, Dr. Northrup and I are going to take this privately now. And I know you guys have had questions. The way you do it, I'm sorry that Robert's not here today, where he normally tells you put a Q and write your question. So go back. If you have a question, especially on YouTube, make sure that you put a Q in, because I'll look really quick and I'll ask Dr. Northrup to answer some of these questions. But we do want to talk about some of the things that we're hearing as rumors. It's so, like you said, there's so much, it's counterintuitive, it's cognitive dissonance. It's so many things that is just making us just go, why bother? Why bother? I'm not even going to make menopause. Most people are going to die. Well, all this stuff that's happening. How do we stay focused on the end of the story, which is God wins? We know the end of the story, God wins. So no matter how we get there, we need to remain focused. What's a good advice, Dr. Northrup, for people that are completely living in fear? I know you say that that's the way that they manipulate us, and breathing 5 times. Any other tips that people can start getting out of that mode and really embracing the beautiful joys that menopause can bring us as well?
The number one thing you need to do is get together with like-minded people. So we started a group in our state, Maine Stands Up, along with Pam Popper, MakeAmericans.com. And there is something so therapeutic. Getting people together, no masks, no social distancing, no nonsense, and share food, share strategies. Like, do you want to go into, as a group, 10 of them, go into Walmart without a mask just to see what would happen, but in solidarity and with fun.
And love, yeah.
And love. Or do we want to rescue a business? So we've got a seafood place up the street. They've just announced that you don't need to wear a mask, so we will give them our business. So we have now, a whole face-friendly businesses in our area. I know that you're in Florida, which is a little more open than a lot of other places. But in general, you do anything to step out of the narrative, the mainstream narrative, and step into living freely. I was visiting in Miami, and I went to an ecstatic dance evening, which was so fun, with drumming and people dancing and, no drugs, none of that, just wonderful. And what I loved is there were a lot of young people there. And I thought, oh, thank you, God. That means there will be a future generation. So you want to hang around that. I know many listeners will have family members that are completely in the narrative and completely in fear. That's all around all of us. And you need to step out of that. If you only have one other person who sees it like you see it, that'll be enough. Because we're all finding each other now. All over the world, we are finding each other and saying, something's off with this amount of censorship about things like vitamin D and vitamin C. Like, really? That makes no sense. And so you find the people who are your people, get together with them, create groups. A year ago on Facebook, I just started to do a daily thing because I was feeling that things weren't quite right. And because have been on the leading edge of holistic medicine for so many years, I had seen how those of us talking about natural remedies and all that, we're always under the gun, like always. We'd come home from a meeting, and say holistic, like, and so when this started to happen, I just started to do a daily thing. And someone decided they'd call us the Warriors of the Radical Light. So now we've got Facebook groups, Instagram groups all over the world. They post their pictures. These are the warriors from Texas. These are the warriors from Cleveland. I mean, it is so much fun, so that these people have there are men too, just doing this. And we have 18 states doing the Pam Popper approach, which is Thursday night meetings, rescuing business, fundraising for paying the lawyers to bring back our freedoms, and getting together in groups and filing lawsuits just to get back civil liberties and health freedom. So 18 different states. And that all started because Pam Popper, who was featured in Forks Over Knives and knows a thing or two about nutrition and is teaching all over the world.
Yeah.
She also saw that something was off. What can we do? What can we do? So she just started Make Americans Free Again. She said, well, we're just going to be one issue voters. Basically, do you believe that a person should have the right to determine what gets injected into their bodies? Literally, that's it. That's the one issue. And when she kept saying to all of us, whether you're a filmmaker or musician, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? She'd say, hold Thursday night meetings. And I found out she was absolutely right. You meet all the people around you, and then you realize how powerful you are. We are going to get our lives back from the grassroots up. It's never going to come from on high. So asking permission of your government is like asking permission from your doctor. Would you please? The only, in my opinion, right at this very moment in history, the only reason you'd ever want to go to anywhere near a hospital is if you're in a car wreck, or if you have atrial fibrillation and you need a cardioversion or something. But your health is in your hands. And now more than ever, people need to take responsibility. The average 65-year-old in this country is on 6 prescription drugs.
Yep. And there are no studies, and there's no studies of what could happen with a combination of those 6 drugs. And people take them like, that's the answer to their problem. I want to remind you guys, this is like the Bible of menopause. So I want you guys to reach out at 407-373-5959. Claim your book. Your name will be placed in the winner's basket. And on Monday, I will draw one name, and then Dr. Christiane Northrup will be sending you a book for you to start taking your life back. And that's what we focus on here. And so today, like I said, I'm going to take all the questions. If you put a Q, I will read it. But what we really want to do is have a private conversation now that will be uploaded on BitChute later on, so that we can continue to grow together and be able to speak our truth. Because, what I get from your book is that, yes, there's a lot that we can do to manage menopause, but what we refuse to do, what we are unwilling to do, like the great philosopher Meatloaf would say, I would do anything for love. But then you can enter weight, you can enter, be healthy, you can enter whatever. But here's what he would say after that. But I won't do that. So what I am asking all of you today is, what are you willing to do to take your life back, to create what you want? Because, as you know, I started a workshop called I Am the Solution. The I Am is the God in us, and the solution is the acronym that we need to pick up our mat so that we can walk. We need to pick up our mat and walk. So I want to encourage you to do whatever it takes to live the life that you want. And I am so excited that we had this conversation today, and I'm even more excited about the conversation we're going to have in a little bit. So thank you so much, Dr. Northrup. Go to her
The
website.
opinions
Oh,
and
hold on a
advice
second.
expressed
Oh,
on the
I don't know
Lillian
what
McDermott
happened there,
radio
but
show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational
we'll
purposes.
do this. We'll do
Please act
this.
responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, so we're going to do this a little bit backwards now. This is Lillian Mcdermott and Dr. Christiane Northrup wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
Ever.
There we go. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye now. So make sure, let me make sure that I have all your questions on YouTube. So let me go to my YouTube account, and then we've got questions on Facebook. Make sure you type in your cue. Once we leave, I have no more access to all of this. So okay, you guys are now typing. Now you wait to type. Okay, let's yeah, let's take our health back. I am so excited about all that we're doing here. So I'm going to take all your questions and I'm going to copy them and I'm going to put them in my here. Let me do this right here. Sorry, this is taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I want to make sure that I have your questions. But Doctor, what are some of the things we're going to talk about? Dr. Northrup, without getting censored here.
We're going to talk about a survey that we've just put together called mycyclestory.com. You all want to know about that. We're hearing about massive numbers of menstrual problems, miscarriages, heavy bleeding, postmenopausal bleeding. So I want to talk about that, what's going on there. What do we know? What don't we know? I want to talk about the new authorization to give the shot to 12 to 15-year-olds, what that's all about.
Okay.
I want to talk about the latest VAERS update.
Yes.
Yes. And then I also want to talk about why magnets are sticking to the
I heard about
injection
that.
site,
I heard about
and
that.
why EMF meters are going off the chart when you go near that site. And also I want to talk about how is it that you can get people who have been the absolute leaders of the mind-body movement and nutrition. And how is it that all these people who have been my colleagues forever and ever are suddenly recommending things that, okay, so let's just say this. There's a whole group of people who wouldn't buy the first model of a car. They want to wait until the bugs are worked out.
Yeah.
So how is it that they're all signing up for something that was created in 7 months and has never been approved? How is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I am intrigued and I hope you are too. That conversation will be uploaded in BitChute only. So make sure you tell all your friends that that's what we're doing today. So thank you for watching on Facebook and YouTube, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Dr. North.